Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 13 of History's Greatest Idiots, the show where we look back through all of human history and bring you examples of absolute menacing stupidity so that you can learn lessons from them and never repeat the mistakes that other people have made ever again. But who are we kidding? We're humans. And mistakes are fun sometimes, especially when we learn from them, but we don't learn much a lot of the time. Nah. Joining me as ever is my amazing co-host and dear friend, Derek. Derek, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing really good.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, it's a wrong day. It's an extra weekend day.
Today is an extra special day. Yeah, we had to delay by 24 hours, but it was fine. I left a cute message for our listeners, and I'm sure they'll get this in the morning. And there's a bunch of stuff happening. This week I have to go to hospital for an MRI, which is going to be fun. The bit before the MRI is not so much fun because I have to drink a diuretic, but I actually kind of don't mind the idea of like, okay, for tests you have to lie down now. I'm like, all right, I'm happy to do that. I have to take time off work to go and lie down while a machine makes noise around me. I'm fine with that.
That's the good tests. The ones where they're like, hey, hook all this up, get on the treadmill and just run for a mile. Those are the tests that suck.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that you're in good shape. So we're going to stress test your entire body. Like, no, I'll tell you right now that my body's kind of fucked and I need treatment. So don't put me on a treadmill, please. Yeah, I completely get that. And I think it's really interesting the tests that you can have in a hospital these days. But yeah, stress testing is not my favorite at all.
Yeah, so laying down is much better test. The lay down test.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Also, just while we're on the subject, I want to talk about our wonderful patrons very quickly. Jesse Christ, Kimberly Johnson, Andrew Zavara, and Dilly Bob. Thank you all so much for your continued support. And actually, Andrew, is it Jesse Christ and Kimberly should now have their, or soon should have their very special first anniversary edition things that I crafted individually for each one. They're similar, but each one's slightly different. And it's a university degree of excellence in stupidity and idiocy. So,
and it is on the way today.
That's right. There you go. And I'm very excited about this. This is a really cute, cool design. It's the same size as an actual university degree. I took a template and completely changed it. So you can now frame this and put it on your wall, and people will not be able to tell the difference except for the logo and the fact that it says idiot a bunch of times on the certificate. So you're welcome. Very sorry about that. But if you would like to join Kimberly, Andrew Zavara, Jesse Christ, and Dilly Bob, you can go to patreon.com/History's Greatest Idiots, and you will get a bunch of gifts for free when you join, and you will also get a bunch of behind the scenes stuff. We're trying a very exclusive new podcast over there where we do only tangents. That's all we do. No structure, just complete tangents all the time. And we have a lot of fun doing that.
It is fun.
The first one was 90 minutes, so it's super long.
Yeah, we talk.
We talk. We're quite good at that. And also, if you stick around with us on Patreon, you'll get special anniversary gifts, which, like I said, the first two are shipping out today, and that's super fun. And also, we're available on Instagram. If you go to @History's Greatest Idiots, we put occasional reels out there. Sometimes they do well, sometimes not quite so much. And if you go to YouTube, you can search for @History's Greatest Idiots. You can find us there. And also, same thing again, YouTube Shorts. We put up along with every single podcast we ever do in video form. You can find our shorts on there. Sometimes they do really well. Sometimes they do badly. Sometimes people downvote them because they don't like the fact that we point out that certain industrialists are fascists. But they are, and we don't mind the downvotes because at least you're engaging. And thank you for a bunch of new subscribers on there. We're up to 181. Down one, but 181 subscribers on. Yeah, they probably hate watched us and decided that we're not going to call anyone fascists again. So yeah, 182 subscribers, and like until recently we were on like 100. So I'm happy with that growth.
Well, welcome to everybody that's here.
Yeah, thank you. In every format that you're listening and watching this, thank you all so much. Yeah, so I've got a really interesting one for you. I've got a bunch of visual aids for mine, so apologies to people who are listening on other platforms. However, if you go onto Spotify, you can watch the video version of the podcast itself. So feel free to go over there and you'll see the slides that I'll be talking about. But before that, Derek, I see that you're going to be talking about an iconic filmmaker. Can you tell us about that person, please?
No. Okay. Today I'm talking about the life of one of the most iconic and influential filmmakers of all time, I think.
Okay.
His career spanned over 5 decades, and he left a huge mark on cinema.
Wow.
That I think he's got like 50 feature films.
Wow.
Maybe more so. More than 50 feature films. And they're subject of study in schools, in film school today.
Cool.
But he was also a bit of a controlling total prick on the set, which I think a lot of directors might be. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the auteur theory that kind of came around in the 60s with directors where they're in control, they're the boss, they're the leader, they're the creative visionary. And it started a lot with Alfred Hitchcock, and they have a very specific style, and it's not a creative process. They're in charge, everyone is an underling. And I think you take that to the extreme with some directors who are like, I don't want to spoil it because I don't know who this is, but like people like James Cameron have been known to be quite difficult on set because they push their actors too far, like making people swim through freezing cold water for days at a time. Or Hitchcock, specifically, his behavior in The Birds with Tippi Hedren. Yeah. And also the worst one, I think, is probably on the set of The Shining. Shelley Duvall, that film like broke her. Like, she is now a shell of a human being mentally because of the intense year-long pressure and stress that was put on her during the making of this film. Horrible treatment by Stanley Kubrick. So,
not to make a joke of it, but you would say she's a shell of a Shelley Duvall?
She's a shell of a Shelley Duvall. Yeah.
Okay, that's a horrible joke.
It's so sad. That is no. I'm sure she's okay with it, but Shelley Duvall's finally getting the recognition she deserves because she had a hell of a career, but it was derailed by all this horrible mistreatment. But yeah, so tell us about this iconic filmmaker then.
Okay, well, it's not Stanley Kubrick. Today I'm talking about the legacy of the master of suspense. I am talking about Alfred Hitchcock.
Amazing. I love it. I love this guy. Great films.
You can do an Alfred Hitchcock, can you not?
I can do an Alfred Hitchcock, and he's from a very specific part of London, and it's all very much like this, and he's quite a chubby gentleman, but also he's quite old, and he has this voice,
I think he talked like that when he came out.
Yeah, pretty much like at the age of 30, he was like that.
He was born on the 13th of August in 1899.
That's right, yeah.
Or 1900. Probably 1899. It was 1900 on his entrance into school because it was believed he was behind in some of his learning, so they put him back a year, made him a year younger.
Gotcha.
He was born in the greengrocer, or the apartment above the greengrocer's shop that his parents leased in, was it Leytonstone? Did I say that right? London?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He was the youngest of 3 children in a strict Catholic family. From an early age, he was drawn to storytelling and visual arts, kind of diverging from the greengrocer tradition of his father and his father's father and his father's 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 father. However,
back to like when the Normans invaded 1,000 years earlier, sort of thing. Yeah.
However long greengrocers existed,
they've all been doing it. Yeah.
One of his childhood stories that he loved to recount in interviews explained his lifelong fear of law enforcement, and I think some early childhood trauma and building of suspense, or his understanding of suspense. At 5 years old, his dad sent him down to the police station with a note, leading to a little brief stint in a jail cell with a stern warning from the police that this is what we do to naughty boys.
Holy shit, that's awful.
Yeah, I guess the experience left Hitchcock with scared straight and an aversion of law enforcement for like the rest of his life.
I mean, taking away someone's personal freedom will do that to you, for sure.
And his dad basically just sent him down there with a note, like, just scare him straight and make sure he understands that if he ever fucks up, he's going to jail.
Wow. Holy shit.
So, be thankful that you didn't have that, Dad?
Yeah. Thank God you didn't have a Victorian era father. Jesus.
In 1910, Hitchcock and his family moved to Stepney, where he attended St. Ignatius College, which was a Jesuit grammar school known for its strict discipline.
Mm.
And here comes the crazy shit. The priests used to wield this tool called ferula. I think that's how you say it.
Sure.
It's this springy stick.
It's like a yardstick kind of thing. Yeah.
And they would use it to smack the entire palm or back of the hand of the young children. This is where he learned suspense, though, because they wouldn't do it when you first got in trouble.
That's it.
What they would do is they would write you up, let you think about it all day long. And then at the end of the day, dole out the corporal punishment with the ferula to your hands in front of the class after you've been waiting for it all day.
That's really bad. You know, this was actually still going on when my dad was in school.
Holy crap.
So this is like the late 60s, early 70s. They were still doing this. And my dad told me a story. It was like, normally there was one cruel teacher, and obviously they all disciplined, but they all did it for very specific reasons. This guy would be set off by anything, and he would just immediately get that fucking thing out and start whipping it around. But what he would do is he would turn it on its side and then hit the back of your hand. So you get as little area covered, but maximum pain.
Yeah. That's
wow. Cruel.
It's almost like a blunt sword.
Basically, yeah. And I mean, if he swung that thing hard enough, you're talking about permanent damage if he's doing it multiple times over and over again to the same person as they're developing. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Cruelty. And that, I mean, I just about avoided that. Like when I was in school in the late 80s, early 90s, that shit was still going on. And I was, crazy.
Absolutely
100 years later.
Why? What was wrong with us?
Conservative country, you know, old rules, horrible. Yeah.
Anyway, I guess, you know, back in the day. Yeah. Luckily, at the age of 14, Alfred left school.
Good.
Unfortunately, because his father passed away, he left school and he needed to support his mother. His older siblings had moved on, but his mom still needed a little looking after. He needed a little looking after, and he took a job at the Henley Telegraph and Cable Company.
Oh.
He continued on with night classes, though, but shifted his focus to art history and painting and economics and political science.
Oh, that's fun. That's a bunch of cool stuff all in one thing. Art history, economics, like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like that eclectic way of learning. That's great.
And then World War I broke out.
Oh, shit.
But,
bye generation.
Yeah, he was a short, fat, unhealthy little dude.
Yeah.
And he wasn't 18 yet, so he couldn't join. But when he did turn 18, he was still a short, fat, unhealthy little dude. And he got a Class 3 or C3 waiver, which saw him join the cadet regiment, which just focused on pretending to do stuff.
I'm the last line of defense.
Yeah. And he focused on his more creative pursuits.
Cool.
In 1919, he started his journey into the world of cinema, where he started work as a title card designer for some movie studios in London.
Cool.
He had a diverse role that allowed him to gain all kinds of different experience. These studios they were American studios in London. And they had a lot of the American employees and actors were super focused in on what they were doing in skill-specific tasks. But the English employees were allowed and encouraged to explore different aspects in script writing and filmmaking, which let him kind of expand and explore, dabble in a little co-writing, a little art direction, a little production management.
And that's a really, I mean, obviously, like focusing in on one skill and getting really, really good at it and perfecting it is great. But I do feel like in an industry where you have multiple different creative roles, I mean, I do this a lot in the industry I work in, you do have to be a bit of a multi-hyphenate. So you have to be able to edit this and write this and film this and put together this and organize that. And actually that's really good. And interestingly, one of the last real big proponents of that passed away recently, Roger Corman, who made a series of really low budget shit movies, but he kind of gave James Cameron and a bunch of filmmakers their first like entries into the industry. And because they worked with minuscule budgets and they had to like do everything. So
He used to have the Roger Corman Presents was like sci-fi horror thriller
that's right, yeah.
show, right?
Yeah, really. I mean, there are good Roger Corman films. I want to point this out, and he's a fascinating guy. Like from a historic perspective, he's a really interesting guy because he launched all of these careers. But a lot of his films are pure schlock, and he got that. He understood that's what I'm making. We've got a limited budget. I'm going to put this out on VHS, and it's going to make profit every time. And he used that to build his life, build his career, and launch a bunch of other careers as well. And I commend him for that. But he was really good at like, right, you are the cameraman, you're also the editor, and this person's the sound person who's also looking after the lights. Like he made people do a bunch of stuff, and it was a really good way of learning. And it's good that Alfred Hitchcock learned that way because it gives you an ability to see different things in different ways.
And I think it led him to be the way he was and do things the way he did and change film the way he did.
Oh yeah, massively. Like he invented so many things.
Yeah, and by 1922 his reputation was growing. He actually, when that studio moved out, Gainsborough Pictures moved in, he got a job working as an assistant director, and that role took him into Germany where he started learning some of the techniques of German cinema.
Yeah, what a time to go to German cinema when you've got expressionism going on in cinema over there. You've got the silent movie era. You've got things like Metropolis, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Nosferatu a few years earlier. Like, what a time to learn to be a filmmaker. Jesus.
And he was super influenced by the German expressionism of the time.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, his directorial debut came out with Pleasure Garden in 1925. And then he established himself as like an awesome filmmaker with his first thriller, The Lodger, A Story of London Fog, in 1927.
There's a shot in The Lodger. Okay, just so in case anyone's confused, I did study film. It's one of my degrees. Is partially film studies. There's a shot in The Lodger, and I think it's the first time it's ever been done. So it's a silent film, and the landlady is like, they have to show terror. They have to show why she's afraid. But she's like, what's happening is she's hearing someone pacing back and forth. But it's silent. So you can't do that in a silent film. You can't understand why someone's staring at the ceiling and afraid. So what he did was he slowly mixed the two shots. And the next shot was the floor and the ceiling had been replaced by a big glass plane, and the guy was just a pane, and the guy was just walking up and down on the pane, and then it would cut back to the floor. It was the first time that had ever been done. So they took out an entire floor, replaced it with a giant thick piece of glass, and then put the floor back and mixed it in editing. And in that point, the audience is like, oh, it's because he's pacing nervously and frantically upstairs, and the landlady's, that's amazing to be able to do that kind of problem solving. Incredible.
Yeah, just the idea to be like, hey, you know what we could do?
We can take the floor out.
Yeah.
What?
and it's that sort of stuff that I think, again, history's greatest idiots.
Yeah.
It really showcased his signature suspense, and also it's where he made his first cameo appearance in films, which is kind of another signature thing he liked to do.
Yeah, it is.
In 1926, he married Alma Revile. Did I say that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Revile. She was the love of his life and his closest collaborator. and her contributions to many of his films were profound. He acknowledged her role in his Lifetime Achievement Award, the AFI Life Achievement Award in 1979, which I thought his quote was like my favorite thing ever. He said, "I want to mention 4 people who have given me the most affection, appreciation, encouragement, and constant collaboration. The first 4 is a film editor. The first of the 4 is a film editor. The second is a script writer. The third is the mother of my daughter, Pat. And the fourth is a fine cook, as ever performed miracles in a domestic kitchen. And their names are all Alma Revile."
That's so...
It's sweet,
so
right?
It's so wonderful. Kind of leading off with the cooking thing, like it's cute because Hitchcock liked his food, but like that's really sweet. Like you're showing the multiple sides of this person. I love that. Yeah,
it's like she's awesome. She does all this stuff, and he shared his achievements with her.
That's great,
and that's an awesome way to do it, which is super good considering what the bad stuff I'm going to talk about has to do with.
Yeah.
In the late 1920s and early 1930s, he transitioned into the talkies and started using sound to heighten the tension in his films, which, he was really good at also.
Have you found the story of how he got into talkies and the trick he played to do that?
Why don't you tell it?
So, the studio he was working for at the time was dead set against making a talkie because they were like, oh, it's going to be too expensive. It's going to be a nightmare. No one's going to want to watch it. They want silent films. So he was like, okay, I'll just carry on making the usual films. And I can't remember the name of the film, and I'm sure you can, like, people will be able to look it up online. The first 10 minutes of this film are completely silent, and then the rest of the film is full sound. And the reason he did that was because the studio heads were coming in to check on the film, and they're like, great, it's not a talkie, great, okay, we'll see you now, bye. And they'd leave like after 6, 7, 8 minutes. And he was like, I've transitioned into talkies now. So by the time it was released and they realized what they had on their hands, they're like, well, we can't go back now. And he's completely tricked us.
Right. And that was his film Blackmail in 1929.
There you go. Amazing. The way that he's a bit like, he reminds me of Mel Brooks, because Mel Brooks would be like, the studio would be like, look, this joke doesn't work, take it out. You're like, oh God, you're absolutely right. It's terrible. I'm going to take it out. And then it just fucking stays in the film.
Yeah.
It just ignores them.
And one of the techniques that he used in that film also was like repetitive use. I can't remember the way he used it, but like when they were approaching the woman that had been the murderer and she kept saying knife, 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 like in the conversation.
Yeah.
Underneath the conversation in the background, you kept hearing her. It built suspense and you didn't know why.
Exactly.
Really.
It's confusion. He's sowing confusion through like sound and editing techniques. Just amazing. Yeah.
But that made his move to Hollywood in 1939 a natural thing. It was a prolific period. He started cranking out movies like Rebecca in 1940, Rear Window in 1954,
one
Vertigo,
of my personal favorite films. Vertigo,
Psycho in 1960, which good chunk of that was shot in Phoenix here.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's where the motel was.
Yes, and when we did the ghost tour the other week on the Get Ghosted Phoenix ghost tour, we did a little ghost hunting. We were at the Hotel San Carlos and right down the street from the Westward Ho. It's that stretch of street down Central is that iconic shot in the opening of the Psycho film.
Oh, that's so cool.
Kind of cool. It looks totally different now, though.
Amazing, like, period of time, because Psycho is like, it's funny because like it was considered like, again, like one of the first, not the first, but one of the first slasher films, and it is. And obviously now you watch it and it's quite an unsophisticated film based on what we watch now, but it established so many tropes and things. And actually you watch it, it's such a well-made film. I can't stress this enough because there's a bunch of people that Hitchcock, including his wife that he worked with, but I feel like without the music of Bernard Herrmann, who did the score for Psycho, a lot of that film doesn't work. Like, you've just got Janet Leigh driving along in a car going like this. I've just stolen a shitload of money, and just driving through the desert. And that's the shot for like 3 minutes, just cutting backwards and forwards and stuff. And in the background, that would be really boring. But then you have Bernard Herrmann doing and then he goes into the psycho stabbing. And it's interesting because after that film came out, film scores changed forever as well, because in the past they used to have vibrato, so the violins would be and like romantic, and he didn't use any vibrato in the film, and it had such an impact that vibrato died for 10 years. Nobody used a wobbly violin sound or anything because of this film. Yeah.
See, can you imagine being so influential that you just change, like, just stuff just leaves film because you don't use it?
Exactly. He changed music, he changed film. Just like the impact is massive. And things like Rear Window, there's no blood in that film, nothing. And it's one of the most tense films I've ever seen. It's just Jimmy Stewart sitting in a window going, oh, what kind of a person chops up a body? I mean, what kind of a mind would do that? I mean, where would you start? Would you start at the head and work your way down to the feet? And what would you do? And it's like, it's the most tense film. It's beautiful as well because it's just shot in, it's like one set. And that and a bunch of other films. So like Marnie and Vertigo is a great one. The 39 Steps, which is another brilliant like spy film, really interesting film. So many great films. It's like a golden period in cinema. And I know people talk about great filmmakers. If anyone out there is interested in film, these visual things hold up. Go back and watch them. They're fascinating.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And during that time that he was innovating the use of the camera angles and editing and stuff to create suspense, and shadowing and lighting, and like you were saying, that weird camera angle through the floor on that was the start of it. But he I don't know, just the way that in Psycho, like you say, it's black and white, but you swear you see red blood.
Yeah.
When
you never see any blood. Well, you never see any actual stabbing. It's all implied, and the sound effects and the blood, and
it's just cool. But 1963, The Birds. That's really where the stories of him being a total dick start or come out the most. He had been known for being demanding and sometimes cruel with his behavior towards some of the actors, especially the leading ladies. He had specific ways that he viewed women and his women characters.
Yeah.
Now, Tippy, who starred in The Birds, and Marnie spoke about the traumatic experience and his obsessive controlling behavior in that book, The Dark Side of Genius by Dan Sapato. During the filming of The Birds, he subjected her to all kinds of extreme conditions.
Yeah, horrible treatment.
Over the course of 6 months of principal photography, the schedule was tight, and she only had like one afternoon a week off to do what she wanted. And when she had that time off, she was followed around and tracked by people. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. And she said at first everything was wonderful. The first few weeks, everything was progressing great. By the week of the final bird attack scene, she's on the second floor bedroom and recalls it as the worst week of her life.
Yeah.
Before filming it, she asked Hitchcock about what her character's motivations were to go upstairs in this scene. Why would she go upstairs? His response was, because I tell you.
Fuck me. Great directing there.
Then he assured her that the crew was going to use these mechanical birds. It was going to be safe. Everything's okay. And instead, she endured 5 solid days of prop men that were protected by thick leather gloves, just flinging dozens of live seagulls and ravens and crows and stuff at her with their beaks just kind of taped and rubber banded shut. And one of them caught her and gouged her like on her cheek, just barely missing her eye. So they had to stop filming, and a physician was brought on set and ordered a week's rest.
Good.
And he's like, "No way, dude." Hitchcock was. She's the only one left we got to film. To which the doctor's on record replying, "Are you trying to kill her?" And he had no reply for that, and they finished filming.
Fuck me, man. There's so much wrong with that story. I mean, Tippi Hedren and the people on set, but also the poor fucking birds.
Yeah.
Flinging birds at people, man. Those poor things. Jesus Christ.
It was probably before the ASPCA and their no animals were hurt during the filming of this movie thing that comes at the end of those.
Yeah. Jesus.
But he was so impressed with her acting abilities that he decided to offer the leading role in his next film, which was Marnie, that came out in 1964.
Very different proposition, that film.
Yeah, it was a romantic drama and psychological thriller. It was the second and last collaboration between the two. Despite her talent, his obsession with her turned kind of into a toxic relationship, which culminated in maybe destroying her career.
Yeah, I've heard this before. Yeah.
There's a dramatization in a 2012 movie called The Girl that came out. You can watch more about that. That's based on her account in the book, Daniel Zapata's book, The Dark Side of Genius. That's what the Girl's based on. But he was obsessive and controlling, according to her. During the filming of The Birds, he had 2 crew members that monitored her activities all the time and followed every move she made. He told her what she was allowed to eat,
Jesus,
who she was allowed to see, how she was allowed to live her life. He even issued an order that no one on set was allowed to speak to her, kind of created an isolated environment.
Sounds like a fucking prank that like Brad Pitt would play on George Clooney, only it's real and it's not funny, you know?
Right. Yeah. Well, her co-star Rod Taylor talked about how Hitchcock became super domineering and possessive, and he would tell people, "Don't touch the girl or I'll call cut."
Jesus.
Can you say it as Alfred Hitchcock? I want to hear how that would sound.
Nobody touches the girl or I call cut.
Yeah. So that's what he would do. And in one disturbing incident, he forcefully tried to kiss her in the car on the way to set.
Yeah, I've seen this. So obviously there's a bunch of films made about Hitchcock and his life, and I think there's one with Anthony Hopkins in, and it's super like positive and stuff, but there's another one with Toby Jones in, which is where he's Hitchcock, and actually that's good casting because Toby Jones is like kind of looks similar in a way to Hitchcock, but it shows the horribleness of that man, and I'd recommend people watch that because this is just some of the most horrific behavior that you can get away without being arrested, basically.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
So after he tried to kiss her, she confided in his assistant and the studio chief, but nothing really changed. She felt super powerless. She was inexperienced, and she was worried about being blacklisted.
Of course,
because that was a thing. I think, to some degree, it might still be a thing with the wrong people. If you look at like Weinstein, allegedly. Well, not allegedly. He's in prison.
I mean, he's pretty much as blacklisted as a human being can get right now. So
yeah. So as filming progressed on Marnie, his behavior got bad, and he insisted on private conversations with her that excluded her from socializing with the rest of the cast. I went over that. He stopped her from appearing on The Tonight Show to receive an award, saying that it would affect her performance.
Bullshit. He's worried about her talking. That's what that is. Yeah.
When during that confrontation, he made an overt sexual proposition to her, and
this 70-year-old man.
Yeah, he demanded that she be sexually available to him at all times, which led to this like super big argument. And that's when she told him that's going to be our last film.
Yeah.
To which he responded, "I'm going to destroy your career."
Jesus, and he kind of did.
Yeah. And then he kept her under contract without work for almost 2 years, turning down role after role on her behalf,
Right.
until 1966 when he sold her contract to Universal Studios.
Okay.
So,
But, yeah. I mean, a 2-year gap at this point in time because people are churning out films. Like some of these directors are doing like 4 or 5 films a year. Yeah, that's kind of career death right there. That's why you should never sign a no-compete clause or anything like that. It can ruin your career.
yeah. Now, one of the things that I kind of wanted to explore about this is the content matter of Marnie. Do you think it had anything to do with, was he a method director?
I see it's really difficult, and it goes back to that conversation where you hear it like really bad people talking, and they're saying negative things about their opponents or people they don't like, and you're like, are you talking about yourself right now? Because it really sounds like you're talking about yourself. And I go back to, I don't know if they have that level of self-awareness to understand that actually it's them that they're doing. Maybe it is with Hitchcock. I don't know. He was a very smart man, but I think his ego was completely out of control at this point. So I don't think he did. I think he's like, this will be an interesting psychological thing. He did it before. Like there are other things like that. Was it Rebecca? He did that was like that. I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, I don't think he was fully aware that that's what was happening.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of disturbing to me, though, that the nature of that film has to do with this woman that robs her employer and has this rough life, and it has a sexual assault scene on her honeymoon to her husband that brings up some sort of bad stuff. But that assault scene, when the cinematographer, oh boy, how many extra syllables did I put in that one? When the cinematographer, Robert Burks, was working with Hitchcock on where to get the shot for that scene, Hitchcock said he wanted it as close as possible to her face so he could get the expression. God, I don't want to say it because it's gross. But he says, Evan, when he sticks it in her, I want the camera right on her face.
Oh, what the fuck, man? Jesus.
The writer on this one, Evan Hunter, had also been a screenwriter on The Birds, explained to him that if Mark, her husband, the character's husband, loved Marnie, that he would comfort her and not assault her. Hitchcock replaced him with a new writer, J. Pearson Allen.
What the fuck, dude?
Yeah, because he turned in a script without that scene and
without horrific sexual assault. Okay.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So I feel like somehow the subject matter on that was intertwined with his horrible behavior to her. But despite that,
he's no longer making a film at this point. He's making like a sexual fantasy that he can watch over and over again.
Kind of a little, it felt that way. It was a weird bit to like kind of read and research there, but his friends came out after that book came out and said that's not the Hitchcock that they know. And maybe it wasn't, but Hedren stands by what she says. He wasn't a horrible person. That was a horrible situation. It wasn't good. She stands by what she says. It was all real. It was all true. It all happened.
And I completely believe her because, this isn't an isolated incident with him. There's weirdness with Hitchcock, and it's always that kind of like ill-defined weirdness. It's like, why is it always blondes with him and stuff like that? I understand it, but like the thing is, people can be one thing to some people and a different thing to other people. So, you can do your best to be a good person, but people fall down, people do terrible things. And it's unfortunate that Tippi Hedren was the person who was on the receiving end of that from Alfred Hitchcock. It doesn't mean that you are universally a bad person. It just means that in this situation, you have acted appallingly or broken the law or been a terrible human being. And, I hope he recognized that, because ultimately, you know, this poor woman's life was ruined by this incredibly powerful man who was very set on controlling every aspect of her life. And I mean, I want to say that that wouldn't fly today, but you know, we still see examples of it, really quite awful behavior. And yeah, Hitchcock, for all his brilliance in this moment, is a terrible person who is exploiting his power.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And she says, despite the trauma, he did really great things for her. He was a huge influence on her career early on
Sure.
and getting it started. But she also says he did ruin her career, but he didn't ruin her life.
Okay, that's good that she's taken that kind of power back from him, because you know she goes on living. And I think I remember Tippi Hedren, I think she made like a comeback in a few films reasonably recently. Like she was in a bunch of films, so she was still acting. But yeah, it's a terrible situation, and I hope he realized that it was bad, but I don't know if he did.
He may have. He went back to being fully in love with his wife. It was 1979 when he got his Lifetime Achievement Award and said those lovely, sweet things about his wife.
Yeah,
Maybe he turned it around and was like, wow, I was being an asshole.
I hope so. I hope that he had that ability to have that insight. I really do.
In his later years, his health started to decline, but he was still trying to innovate and inspire film. His final film was The Family Plot in 1976. Which marked the end of an era. In 1980, he was knighted.
Wow.
Became Sir Alfred Hitchcock.
That's awesome.
Made his last public appearance at the American Film Institute before passing away on the 29th of April in 1980 from kidney failure.
Okay.
So there you go. That's Sir Alfred Hitchcock and his complex legacy.
Yeah, it is very complex. I think it's, from what we can tell, I mean, the influence on film and everything we watch now, it's kind of like talking about the Beatles. You know, people talk about how influential the Beatles are, and I feel like that certain people, maybe younger generations, maybe aren't told why they're influential. They just said they're great, this is amazing, they're influential. Like, well, how are they influential? And you have to talk about, like, you're taking elements of transitioning from a purely pop band to a band that did jazz, comedy, heavy metal, experimental music, world music, weird music, and like that, like it's like One Direction becoming like Slipknot. Like that's kind of the transition here. So and I feel like when you look at films the way they are now and the things we're doing, and like whenever like if you watch something like The Talented Mr. Ripley or Ripley, the TV show that came out on Netflix recently with Andrew Scott and a bunch of people in it. That is a film noir inspired TV show. That is all noir elements, camera angles, lighting, shadows, chiaroscuro, all of it, film noir. And that wouldn't exist without German Expressionism and Alfred Hitchcock. And that's kind of it. Like he created, or at least brought this entire way of filmmaking to life. And the camera angles that we see, the techniques, the pull zooms, the pull focuses, and all the different things, having people walk in front of a camera and then cut while their coat is in the middle of the frame so that you can cut, and it looks like it's one long shot, but actually there have been 3 edits in there because he's had people walk in front of the frame. That's Alfred Hitchcock. Specific zooms, different like sound effects and stuff, and diegetic and non-diegetic sound. All of this is like kind of massively innovated by this one person who was an absolute genius, a proper outsider as well, because he wasn't a posh boy who went to like a very expensive school. He was very much a working class hero, but unfortunately the power and influence he had did definitely corrupt him, and
at least for a minute,
for a while, yeah. And I think he became so completely consumed by his obsession with this one person that it kind of has tarnished his legacy. He's not the only filmmaker to do it. He won't be the last, or any other type of creative or person in this world. Obsession is a very, very scary thing. But I'm glad that Tippi Hedren is now in a position where she can say, this does not control my life. This is not my legacy. I have created my own legacy away from this horrible situation. And good, because I wouldn't want Alfred Hitchcock's legacy to be completely dominated by that, because those films are amazing. You should watch them in the same way that you should watch, even though it's a horrible, horrible film, you can still get, I'm going to say something really controversial. You can still go back and watch a film like Birth of a Nation, and you can see like some of the camera shots and stuff, and you're like, oh, that's really interesting that they tried that. And they're like, oh my God, the KKK are in this and they're the good guys. What the fuck is happening? It's a terrible, terrible film. But like, it was the most popular film in America for 35 years.
Dude, the president played it at the White House.
I know. That's fucking crazy. That is so crazy. But like, filmmakers, and there's so many of them, they're all deeply flawed. Artists in general, you know, you find me an influential, powerful artist, they'll have done something fucking terrible at some point in their existence. It's just sort of the way they are. Creativity so close to mental illness and all of that stuff. But as he looks around at his pictures, but I just think that the power of Hitchcock's films will hopefully be the lasting legacy, and I do hope he had a loving life later on after he got over whatever it was. We don't know if that's the case. I hope it was, and I'm glad that Tippi Hedren is now okay, or was. I don't know if she's still with us or not, but yeah,
that's a good question. I didn't look
she'd
into
be in her
that
80s. Let me very quickly Google that. I don't think there's going to be too many things that come up when I type in tippy toes, Tippi Hedren. Tippi Hedren is still alive, 94 years old.
Outstanding. I had that happen the other day. I was looking up an old family member, and I was like, holy crap, she's still alive. Oh, she was old when I was a kid.
That's incredible. Yeah, and like Angela Bassett was like 60 years old for 50 years. Sort of thing.
It's strange how that happens.
Crazy. So I did not know this. Tippi Hedren, her full name is Natalie K. Hedren. Her daughter is Melanie Griffiths. Yeah, didn't know that.
Outstanding.
Yeah, good for, and her grandchildren, Dakota Johnson.
Okay, well, yeah. Here's some interesting information I could have. Do your research, Derek. What is wrong with you?
No, but that's kind of cool. I mean, this wasn't a story about her, but look at that legacy. Both of her children, like Melanie Griffiths, was a huge star in the 80s. And like Dakota Johnson has been a mainstay in like filmmaking now for like the last 15 years. That's an incredible legacy. And if her like trials and hardship have meant that these people have gone on to be stronger people as a result, then good for her. Well done. But yeah.
Now, could you say that Melanie Griffiths is a Nepo baby then, if her career was ruined while her mom's career was ruined while she was coming up?
That's an interesting thing. I don't know if that, because Nepo baby is very much a kind of a new phenomena. Yeah. You know, like you look at some of the people that came out in the 80s and stuff, and yes, they did have advantages because they had like Charlie Sheen, you know, had a bunch of advantages in Emilio Estevez, but I don't think they were like as living in such luxury as say like the Smith children, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of a different thing, but then again, you know, everyone struggles in their own way. So you shouldn't dismiss them for their struggles. But yeah, I would imagine that given that Tippi Hedren was blacklisted, it's almost even more impressive that Melanie Griffiths was as successful as she is and was, really. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. Hey, there's a good example of what that other Patreon podcast thing, the tangent. We just wandered off on a tangent.
I'm so sorry. Please go and listen to our tangents. We do that all the time. This isn't the right forum for it. So I think in terms of scoring, again, nobody died, but like Hitchcock, different era. People will say, oh, it was a different era, different time. Kind of wasn't. Like, there are people around him getting fired for pointing out that he shouldn't be treating her like shit. So I don't think it's anything to do with the era. I think it's just basic human decency at this point. So I'm going to go a 20 with Hitchcock.
Okay.
Because the incredible legacy of his creativity like is very, very strong in it. Yes, you know, Tippi Hedren had to put up with some really horrific behavior, but he didn't kill anyone. He an overwhelmingly positive legacy other than this terrible period.
And he tried to kiss her and didn't, and she forgave him, and they appeared to work it out. And I don't know. I don't know. She should have got a free shot at his kisser though.
Yeah, it should have been just like a Michael Scott, like you get one punch.
Yeah, that seems fair. That's a good trade. You tried to kiss me and I said no, so I get to punch you in the nose. Or the
also,
mouth.
she's like significantly bigger than him, like taller than him. So I think she could have knocked him out.
Oh, that would have been great.
That would have been amazing. He would have rolled. He was a big dude. He had quite the shadow. So Alfred Hitchcock, 20. I think that's reasonably fair for one of the most influential filmmakers of all time. Also, kind of a massive arsehole at times.
Yeah, no, 20 is totally fair. And forget my controversial statements there.
No, that's totally fine. I really enjoyed that. I love that era in film when you can like look into the films and understand what they're trying to do with the shots and the overall story and stuff. And it's just really fascinating. And like, I love that people were allowed to do that. They were allowed to create this beautiful, interesting art that explored things that doesn't necessarily happen now. And actually, if I could have an art gallery, a museum, and like a kind of a classic cinema all in one complex, I basically never leave. So
yeah, we should make that.
Yeah, that would do good money. I think we have that actually where I live, but it shut down recently. It was an old log factory, and unfortunately it shut down because it couldn't get the funding. But hey, it's opening again soon as a cinema, so that's good. So on to my idiots. This episode. So we've done weird like disconnect, like we've done corporations as idiots, we've done like groups of people as idiots, we've done couples as idiots. This is the first time we've done a nation as a potential idiot. A nation. This is very loose nationhood stuff here. So don't think it's a full proper nation. But I need to tell you the story and the history of Sealand, the smallest independent nation ever. So
Sealand?
Sealand, not SeaWorld, Sealand. So Fort Ruffs, or the Ruffs Towers, was the first of originally 4 naval forts designed by G. Mansell to protect the Thames estuary during World War II. The artificial sea forts were constructed in dry dock Red Lion Wharf in Gravesend in the year preceding and into 1942. The artificial naval installation is similar in some aspects to early fixed offshore oil platforms. So imagine an oil rig, an oil platform, and just like a smaller version of that. And obviously, this isn't the kind of things where you can pick it up and drag it or whatever they do with oil rigs when they're done or decommission them. These are fixed in place. So completely solid. And I'll describe how it's done now. It consisted of a rectangular 168 by 88 foot reinforced concrete pontoon base. So it's like a big old base thing there, with a support structure of 2 60-foot tall 24-foot diameter hollow reinforced concrete towers.
So it's got like a thing.
Yeah, it's got legs. Essentially hollow, giant, wide legs coming up out of the seabed. The walls are roughly 3.5 inches thick, and overall the weight is estimated to have been approximately 4,500 tons. So big ass weight there, making sure that the base does not move.
That's staying put. That's a heavy ass.
That ain't going nowhere. You'd have fucking submarines just boing bouncing off the fucking thing. There was a steel framework. Sorry, I've missed a bit here. The 2 concrete supporting towers were divided into 7 floors. So quite a lot of internal space in them. 4 for crew quarters, and the remainder were providing dining, operation, and storage areas for several generators and for freshwater tanks and anti-aircraft musicians. Just fucking firing musicians into the
There's
air.
planes coming. Throw the guitarists.
Yeah, quickly grab Robert Plant. That's how. What's his name? Pennsylvania 65000. That's how. What's his name disappeared? Glenn, the musician. Maybe he was just shot out of a cannon. Anyway, I sidetracked on lost jazz musicians. So they've got a bunch of stuff inside these support towers, so they're very, very useful. There was a steel framework at one end supporting a landing jetty and a crane, which was used to hoist supplies aboard, because obviously they're like 60 foot up in the air. The wooden landing stage itself became known as a dolphin. Don't know why dolphins would. Maybe, but they both float. I don't know. So it's a pretty impressive structure. I'm going to show you the picture. So for those who are listening, I'll describe it to you. Well, I've just described it to you, but it's basically, it's like two legs on a surfboard. The surfboard is underwater. And there's like a kind of a crane structure at the back. And then you get to the kind of the base level, and it looks like basically a large tugboat on top of this thing, because it's like kind of stacked. It's got multiple layers. You've got a radar dish on the top. You got two giant anti-aircraft guns either side, and then two slightly smaller ones either side as well. And then like a bunch of kind of, what are those things? Life rafts. And then you can see the 7 floors in between. So
yeah, it looks like a little canoe, but those guns are impressive.
Exactly. And this is now like miles and miles out at sea. So it's essentially an early warning system, so they can start shooting at the Luftwaffe and anything else that comes over, or like a ship that might be on the horizon trying to make, so that they can radio back to land, muster the RAF and get fighters out. And this can meanwhile cause a bit of damage, because it's even the big ship, the big guns at the time, they're not getting through like 3.5-inch thick steel and concrete. Like, they'd have to be very precise. And it's just it's a really interesting structure. So back to the full story of it. The towers were joined above the eventual waterline by a steel platform deck, upon which other structures could be added. This became a gun deck on which the upper deck and a central tower unit were constructed. 3.7-inch anti-aircraft guns, Jesus Christ, were positioned at each end of this main deck, and 2 further Boffers 40mm anti-aircraft guns, and the central tower radar installation atop a central living area that contained a gallery, medical, and officers' quarters. So, fully functioning base, basically.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, it's like a small military base. It's got medical stuff. A galley, not a gallery. What the fuck was I talking about? You got a kitchen, officers' quarters. You got a bunch of stuff below decks. Really, really useful space. So HM Fort Ruffs was in operation within 30 minutes of being launched. The crew had been aboard during the fitting out in harbour, and were all acquainted with the fort's equipment. So they just floated the fucking thing out, sunk it, and then just climbed in. Kind of amazing, really. Approximately, this is the crazy part, 100 men were assigned to the barge before deploying to rough sands. Thereafter, the fort was occupied by 150 to 300 Navy personnel in these crew quarters, 3 bunks high on rotating shifts.
That's pretty tight quarters.
That's really tight quarters, like a submarine.
Yeah.
So they're probably doing like 8-hour shifts, that sort of thing, and then like they're off and they can have food and do what they need to do in their downtime and sleep.
They dragged it how far out?
So I'll get to that in a minute. Actually,
Okay.
That's a very important part of the story. But there's 4 of these that they've made, and they're all kind of around the entrance to the River Thames, or like on the water approach, because that's obviously where the majority of like the bombings are going to be taking place. That's where the Germans are going to be approaching from in the planes. So it makes sense to have them close to the Thames estuary, or the mouth of the River Thames, like the sea entry there. So 300 Navy personnel, that continued throughout World War II. At the conclusion of hostilities, all original personnel were evacuated. I think it's a big bit of a strange way of putting it, from HM Rough Forts, Fort Roughs, sorry. British government officials, official entities used Rough Tower, as it was also known, Rough's Tower, for a variety of purposes, basically spying, until 1956, when all full-time personnel were finally removed. Rough's Tower remained identified by name on buoys placed in position by the Ministry of Defence, which were maintained under an arrangement with Trinity House. The purpose was to warn vessels of the obstacle, because there's no one there now, and it's this giant, indestructible fucking thing in the middle of the sea with no lights on, and you're going to crash into it because it's in there's fog, and it's in the middle of a shipping lane, and it's just a giant man-made trap, basically. But at least if your ship sinks, you can go and live on it, you know?
Yeah,
So,
there you go.
yeah.
It's a quick swim from your sunken ship.
That's
This new thing we made.
Exactly. So this thing's been out of commission for better part of a decade now. Have you ever heard of pirate radio?
I have. I think I watched that movie.
Yeah, I think in some countries it's called The Boat That Rocked. Yeah. So, for those of you that aren't familiar, pirate radio in the UK has still going, been a popular and endearing form of radio medium since the 1960s. Despite expansions in licensed broadcasting, and the advent of both digital radio and internet radio, it's still going to this day.
Really?
Yeah, it's essentially a radio station. So still haven't fully explained it. It's a radio station that broadcasts music that mainstream radio stations will not refuse to play for whatever reason. And they also, in turn, refuse to pay any governing body or any broadcasting licenses or even acknowledge the authority of the governing body. So they're going to play whatever the fuck they want, whenever they want, and you can't do shit about it until you find them and shut them down, basically. Outlaw radio.
Yes.
Basically, yeah. And in the 60s, this was the height of pirate radio. Really interesting time. It peaked through the 1960s and again during the 80s and 90s with like rave music and dance music and stuff like that, really popular illegal raves and stuff. It remains in existence to this day, having moved from transmitting on ships in the sea and on towers and stuff to actual tower blocks in the middle of city centres, like giant high-rise tower blocks in the middle of London and all these cities, usually or sometimes on the roof, one of the buildings that's there that you're not supposed to be able to access. That's where a pirate radio station is taking place, because it can broadcast for miles in any direction. Awful music to anyone. In 2009, the UK broadcasting regulator Ofcom estimated that more than 150 pirate radio stations were still operating. That's a lot. Yeah, it's like one for every major town, basically. Holy shit. In the early 60s, Roy Bates, a major in the British Army, established a radio station situated offshore on an abandoned ex-naval fort known as Knock John. So it was another one of these towers that we've just talked about, the Rough's Tower thing. Okay. It's another one of those. The theory behind this location was an attempt to bypass the draconian broadcasting restrictions of the time, which permitted little more than formal broadcasting by the BBC. No music. Nothing. Just talking and information. And occasional music, but it's going to be classical. So Roy Station, Radio Essex, and others like it were known affectionately by the media as pirate radio stations and were much loved by the British public, as they supplied everything that the BBC did not at the time: pop music and amusing presenters. The Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the BBC was refusing to play them.
Wow.
For a while. Yeah, crazy. I know, to think now how everywhere radio was, but there was a time when radio was just news and information, and that's it, and that was all they were going to do. It's
insane to me how quickly it went from that to everybody saying radio's dead.
Yeah, but also to think that the transformation of like 1960, only information, only news, and a half hour of music at like 8 p.m. or something like that, to entire radio stations, multiple radio stations, only devoted to playing pop music. That happened in like 3 years.
Oh yeah.
Crazy quick. So, go on. What were you going to say?
Yeah, what a good time.
Amazing time. Imagine witnessing that, especially as a young person. It's like, my God, I can actually hear the Rolling Stones on the radio now wherever I go. Like, that's really cool. And, you know, every car had a radio. This wasn't like TVs were still quite expensive at this point, but every car had a radio. So that's really cool. In the years that ensued, Roy fought an unsuccessful legal battle with the UK government, which questioned the legality of his occupation of Knock John because it ruled that Knock John fell under UK jurisdiction because it was 3 miles offshore. So it was within naval maritime waters. Smarting from his setback, Roy weighed up his options. Another abandoned fortress, Ruff's Tower, identical in construction to that of Knock John, existed further offshore and crucially outside of the 3 mile limit to which the UK jurisdiction extended. It was 8 miles offshore from the UK. So it's quite a bit out there. 8 miles offshore, and this is the 1960s. There weren't helicopters everywhere, so it's kind of difficult to get to. And those are some rough waters. That's where the fucking Spanish Armada sank. So you can't just go out there in a dinghy. You need a proper fucking boat, and that's not easy. So smart move by this guy. Roy proceeded to occupy Ruff's Towers on Christmas Eve 1966 with the intention of revitalizing his dormant radio station. That was until he conjured up a completely different plan entirely. After consulting his lawyers, Roy decided to declare his fortress island the independent state of Sealand, claiming just gentinium or law of nations, fucking ancient law there, like 1,000 years old or something, over a part of the globe that was terra nullius, nobody's land or no man's land. So, because it's outside of it's outside of the UK, it's outside of the water, the rights you have to the ocean around your country. It's outside of that. So, on the 2nd of September 1967, accompanied by his wife Joan on her birthday, his son Michael, 14, his daughter Penelope, 16, and several friends and followers, Roy declared the Principality of Sealand. The founding of this country was marked by the raising of a newly designed flag, and in an extremely romantic birthday gesture, he bestowed the new title on his beloved wife to be known as Princess Joan, not Queen Joan.
Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah, why? I mean, that's not that romantic.
Is there no queen?
Maybe there's multiple queens. I don't know. But no, he's given her a princess. I guess like, oh, you're a princess. You're my princess. I guess like it's kind of like you're younger in a sense with that title potentially. So
maybe, yeah. I guess I could see it. Maybe he didn't want to piss off the queen.
He did not. That's a good point. Do not fuck with the queen. In 1968, British workmen entered what Bates claimed to be his territorial waters. Lol. To serve as a navigational buoy near the platform, because they still have, even though this is occupied now and there's lights on, they've still got buoys out there telling people to get the fuck away. Michael Bates, the son of Roy Bates, tried to scare the workmen away. How would you scare workmen away, do you think, in a situation like this?
Throw rocks. Throw sticks. Loud banging.
Yeah, lots of noise, stuff like that. Michael decided to fire a shotgun at them.
Oops.
From a giant naval fortress. As Bates was a British subject at the time, he was summoned to court in England on firearms charges following the incident. Those are really serious in the UK, and even back in the 60s, they were very, very serious. However, and in an amazing turn of events, the court ruled that the platform, which Bates was now calling Sealand, was outside of British territorial limits, being beyond the 3 nautical mile, 6 kilometer limit, which then applied to the country's waters. As a result, the case could not proceed as it was not within British jurisdiction. They were outside of British rule of law.
Aha!
Bates considered this as an insistence that Sealand was now de facto recognized as an independent country. I don't think that's what that means, but I can see how you could get there.
Yes, I mean, sorta.
Yeah. A British legal institution has accidentally ceded land because it's outside of their jurisdiction. So they're like, we can't prosecute him. He's not part of Britain. So this dude who's living with his family in 2 concrete pillars in the middle of the ocean is now a nation, according to the UK government, kind of.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So
I'm gonna wander around in my boat and see if I can find some abandoned place to live. This is neat. It's a cool
get
idea.
out there. There'll be a few. There'll be some out there. I guarantee it. There's some Napoleonic forts that have been turned into 5-star hotels in the UK waterways. Yeah, it's really cool. In 1975, Bates introduced a constitution for Sealand, followed by a new national flag, a national anthem, a currency, passports, and an immigration stamp, which you can still get.
Wow.
We'll get to that in a bit. The next segment is taken directly from Sealand's own website, and it's probably the most famous thing about Sealand, and definitely the most fucking crazy by a country mile. So all of these quotes are directly taken from their website. And by the way, I would recommend you go and check out sealandgov.org. It's fucking hilarious and kind of crazy because it's full of propaganda, but like kind of tongue-in-cheek propaganda about their lives. So in August of 1978, a number of Dutch and German men came to Sealand in the employ of a German businessman. They were visiting under the guise of a business proposition. This transpired to be a ruse, as these men were in fact highly trained mercenaries. Yeah, like half a dozen of them just showed up. While Prince Roy, the dad, was away in Germany conducting the other part of the business deal, signing the papers and stuff, the mercenaries kidnapped his son and took Sealand by force. They had guns.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, kind of scary shit. And this is where the Sealand bit comes in, like the wording. These terrorists bound Prince Michael's hands and feet, holding him captive for several days before eventually transferring him against his will onto a fishing trawler. Following the trawler's landing in the Netherlands, Prince Michael made his way back to the UK to reunite with his father, Prince Roy. Just the prince thing is throwing me. One of them needs to be a king.
Yeah. Damn it.
A plan was immediately hatched by the two to recapture Sealand, codenamed Operation Trident. Sealand's most loyal and highly trained citizens were called upon, and the legendary Sealand Special Unit was born. Wow. It's going to get so fucking weird.
Okay.
The operation was executed a few short days later. It involved a daring dawn helicopter assault and culminated in the unconditional surrender of the invaders. Now, they don't tell you in this account what happened, but what happened was this fucking helicopter was flying super low over the water so that they couldn't see it coming, really, or like hear it coming. Then it fucking emerged out of the fog, hovered above the deck, and Roy jumped down out of the helicopter with a loaded shotgun and threatened to go on a rampage if they didn't surrender. And they've all got like little Lugers and stuff, and he's got a fucking sawn-off double-barrel shotgun pointed directly at their faces. These mercenaries. The only first-hand account of this event is recalled in Prince Michael's book, Holding the Fort, available here. The invaders were held as prisoners of war. Basically, their version, the prince's version of events, is that we didn't. No one was threatened with a gun. No one was threatened with a gun. My father jumped out of the helicopter and dropped the gun, and it went off accidentally. And they heard the bang, and they were like, "Oh, he's crazy. Let's all give up." I don't believe that for a fucking second. I think he waved a shotgun around, and they were like, "He's crazy. I don't want a piece of this anymore. This is too much."
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's almost American in the way this whole thing went down. It's fucking crazy.
It's intense. It's
weird.
It's
really weird. I would love like a two-part drama of this whole like Sealand adventure. But so they've got these like multiple guys, and they've got to hold them somewhere. Fortunately, the fort, because it was like recustom, so they've still got all of the internal stuff. They've still got the 7 different rooms in either pillar, so they've got 14 rooms. They go right the way down to the floor, plus all the stuff above deck with the galley and the housing and the officers' quarters and the radar tower and all that. So they've got quite a lot of space here. So they have turned one of the rooms into a brig.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fucking small. During this period of time, the governments of Germany and the Netherlands petitioned for the release of these people. Initially, they asked Britain to intervene, but the British government cited the early court decision as evidence that they had no authority over Sealand. So they wouldn't help, stating that there was nothing that they could do. I mean, it's kind of like, fuck you. You should have been under control of these mercenaries who landed near our shore, basically. Prince Roy released the Dutch citizens almost immediately as the war was over, and the Geneva Convention mandates the release of all prisoners. However, the German citizen who was the holder of a Sealand passport, the guy who initiated the deal, they held him in prison for quite a while. And the cell was like 8 foot by 6 foot. Didn't have a window. It had a single cot. It had a desk and it had a shitter, and that's it. Didn't even have a sink. So kind of rough conditions.
So he had a Sealand passport, but he was a German citizen. How did he?
He was a German. Sorry, still gone.
How did he get the passport? Did I miss that?
Bought it.
He bought it.
It's part of the business deal. He bought a passport. So he's now under their idea of, we're a country. You're a citizen of this country now. You're dual citizenship, yes, but you're in our country, you're a citizen of our country, you are beholden unto our laws, which we're making up as we go. So,
well, I mean, they had a constitution, and I bet you in the constitution it said, don't bring a bunch of Dutch guys here to overthrow our country that we made up.
Yeah. Also, shotgun justice. Hooray! Where's my sawn-off shotgun? And I've seen a picture of this fucking thing. There's barely any barrel. It's just like 2 bullets just fucking sticking out. It's just the spray on this thing. It would have been like a garden hose or something. So they found him guilty in what I'm guessing is a different room that they have set up as a court. And he was incarcerated for an extended period of time in Sealand's jail at the bottom of the North Tower, like right by the waterline. Following this, in a sensational act of de facto recognition of Sealand's sovereignty, this is taken from their website again, Germany sent a diplomat directly to Sealand via helicopter to negotiate the release of their citizen. Prince Roy, grateful that the counterattack had not resulted in a loss of life, released the treasonous German citizen in a move aimed at preventing the bloodying of Sealand's reputation. This is like something out of the Iraqi Justice Ministry. It's fucking amazing. I love this statement.
It's so weird.
It's so cool. They also leave out the part where they demanded money. They don't talk about that. They demanded money. They demanded 70,000 Deutschmarks for his release, which at the time would have been about $35,000 US, 23,000 pounds. In today's money, that's $150,000.
Well, you don't win if you don't try.
Yeah, exactly. Like, ransom, and this is your bond. Pay your bond and you're free to go, but yeah, it's basically blackmailing an entire country. The Germans were they were pacifists at the time, so I guess you couldn't really do anything about it, but
gotta make an effort.
Yeah, don't fucking piss off the Germans, please don't. Following the former's repatriation, Achbach and Gernot Putz, these are the 2 people who orchestrated the attack on the place, proclaimed a government in exile, sometimes known as the Sealand Rebel Government or Sealandic Rebel Government in Germany. They're a government in exile. It's hilarious.
Oh my goodness.
It's so fucking amazing.
These people are all ridiculous.
Ridiculous. And they've all got guns. They're all crazy. They all want a piece of this, like, fucking like barge that's shoved out of the ocean by two pillars, and they've all got guns and they're all crazy and they all try and kidnap each other. It's just insane, but I love it.
Now I have to be missing something. Did he buy this place?
He was so the guy who attacked it was trying to buy it. Yeah,
but I mean the Prince Roy. And his
he just landed there and took it over. He squatted.
Okay,
and then
you can do that.
I mean, it's not part of Britain, so who are you going to buy it from? It's just sort of there. The Navy don't use it anymore, so squatters' rights.
How far out do I have to go?
Well, we'll get to that in a bit, because in 1987, the United Kingdom extended its territorial waters to 12 nautical miles.
Ah, son of a... That's pretty far.
That's kind of right out there, isn't it? Sealand now sits in waters internationally recognized as British. However, this fucking crafty motherfucker, the previous day, in anticipation of this, Prince Roy was like, I know what they're trying to do. Prince Roy declared the extension of Sealand's territorial waters to be 12 nautical miles. So the right of way for the open sea to Sealand would not be blocked by British claims of waters. Sealand's approximately 7 or 8 miles off British shore, so they have a window where they can officially, and it extends beyond British claims of water because they're already 7 miles out. So they're over halfway out. So essentially, it's still sort of there. So they've still got territorial waters 12 miles around the actual thing and out into the open ocean. So kind of still okay. And also, don't let anyone ever tell you that the British Empire actually shrunk after World War II. They extended it so that they could keep Sealand and get these fuckers, but it didn't work. No treaty has ever been signed between Britain and Sealand, I wonder why, to divide up the overlapping areas, but a general policy of dividing the area between the two countries down the middle can be assumed because no one's ever contested it, so therefore, why bother? International law does not allow the claim of new land during the extension of sea rights. So Sealand's sovereignty was safely grandfathered in. So you can't just extend and this island's ours now. You can't just do what China's doing in the South China Seas. You can't just this is all of ours now. Actually, no, that's ours. That's ours. So Sealand is still independent because it can't be claimed.
Gotcha.
So some nations might have tried to use as an excuse to try to subvert international law and claim all the territory of the smaller and less recognized nation. However, that has not been the case because, really, who cares? Britain has made no attempt to take Sealand, and the British government still treats Sealand as an independent state. Those last few paragraphs were taken directly from their own website. We're independent. Shut up. We got guns.
Do they still have the anti-aircraft guns?
Oh no, those were decommissioned with the Navy took those.
Damn.
I think I know, but that's why they're fucking armed to the teeth with shotguns and stuff.
Do you think you could build them back? I wonder. I'd try to build them. Been out there a long time.
They're an independent nation. They can do what they want. And also, another point of contention, something else they don't mention, they have Molotov cocktails, and they ain't afraid to use them. So, if you're in a boat and they're chucking Molotov cocktails at you, you're kind of fucked.
Wow.
So,
man,
crazy people. Sealand's previously sold fantasy passports, as termed by the Council of the European Union. They called them fantasy. Which are not valid for international travel. In 1997, the Bates family revoked all Sealand passports, including those that they themselves had issued over the previous 22 years, due to the realization that an international money laundering ring had appeared using the sale of fake Sealand passports to finance drug trafficking and money laundering from Russia and Iraq.
Oh,
shit.
Aha.
Now, the British government might take notice of that, so they'll recall all the passports, and maybe it was Reagan, maybe it was Ronald Reagan trying to find it didn't work the first time, maybe we'll try this Sealand business. Yeah, let's try that. We still got the countries on the phone, so maybe it was Reagan. The ringleaders of the operation, based in Madrid but with ties to various groups in Germany, including the rebel Sealand group in exile established by Achbach, So he used fake Sealandic diplomatic passports and number plates. The Rebel Alliance.
Oh.
Tied to money laundering and drugs and shit. That's kind of dodgy. Crazy people.
I don't understand any of this. Although I'm now on the sea. Now I've wandered off.
So cool, isn't it?
I'm gonna buy one of these titles. I'm gonna
be a
duke.
Me too. I want to be a lord. I
Lord.
want to be Sir Lev of Sealand. Oh, we'll get to the things in a minute because people do this. Famous people are a count or a duke. Yeah, I mean, some of them are expensive. Like some of them are like $150, $200, but it's kind of fun. They were reported, these rebel people in exile, they were reported to have sold 4,000 fake Sealandic passports to Hong Kong citizens for an estimated $1,000 each.
Oh, wow.
And they use that money to launder and shit. Holy shit.
That's okay. How do you tell if your fake passport's a fake passport? That's
it. I don't know if you can. I think they can claim like, oh, we're part of an independent nation, small nation. And I guess, this is 1980. When was this? 1997. No one's checking on the internet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just really strange, though. Like, oh, man, I bought this fake passport and it was a fake passport. It was a fake of the fake.
Yeah. And a very expensive fake. Like, if you're going to buy a fake passport, why spend $1,000? I guess people in Hong Kong at the time had a lot of money. So
I guess I would have just printed out on my own laser printer at home if I'm going to just get a fake one.
Exactly. I've just realized 1997, that's the year that the UK transferred ownership, sort of ownership of Hong Kong back to the Chinese government. All of a sudden, 4,000 people have bought a bunch of fake passports. I wonder if those two events are connected.
I bet you.
I wonder. Michael Bates stated in late 2016 that Sealand was receiving hundreds of applications for passports every year. In 2015, Bates asserted that Sealand's population is normally like 2 people, except on ladies' nights, and then it's like a 1-in, 1-out system. You've got to wait. Okay, full capacity. We don't want to get the fucking fire marshal down here. In early 1999, a group of young American entrepreneurs pitched the idea of Havenco to Prince Michael. Havenco, there we go, to Prince Michael. The premise was to establish an internet server farm on Sealand because there's a lot of room in this place, so you can put a bunch of servers in there, which would allow users to operate free of draconian censorship restrictions imposed by other nations. This is 1999. There's no restrictions on the fucking internet at this point in time. During the year 2000, in the midst of the dot-com boom, contracts were signed, capital was raised, and Havenco was established on Sealand, along with bases in London and Amsterdam. Huge infrastructure upgrades began in earnest to accommodate the power and the vast racks of servers, as well as meet the logistical demands of the project. Satellite and microwave links were installed, and around 25 staff from the US, UK, and Europe immigrated to Sealand, preparing to launch the service. They lived on this fucking thing, along with the family.
Why do I feel like that might be where the server farm for some of those online poker places were run?
I feel like it might be, actually. But it gets weirder. Anyway, it's .com bubble, remember? So Havenco took a global media coverage, and the inception of the project was met with much fanfare because it's on a fucking platform in the middle of the ocean. That's pretty interesting news right there. This would prove to be the first misstep for Havenco, as the launch of the server was beset by delays, and come launch day, the media buzz had cooled. By late 2000, Havenco launched. Differences between the immediately clear between Sealand's royal family and the members of Havenco's senior management over issues concerning acceptable user policy. I looked into this. I watched a documentary about it. So the servers were running gambling and pornography, like you mentioned, gambling, and like they were okay with that. That a bunch of servers run that. Where they drew the line was that Havenco were thinking about working with a company that wanted to sell human organs. Yeah, that's where it gets a bit fucking dodgy. Yeah, and you don't want to anger the British government because there's like parts of the world like Montenegro where, like, for a long time there was a village in Montenegro that was right on the border of the European Union, where like something like 50% of the people in that town had sold their kidneys because they could get like $5,000 for them.
Oh,
So
crap.
yeah, and that was a lot of money in Montenegro back then, and it was a very depressed former Soviet hub. So yeah, and they were approached, and Haven Co were like, yeah, we're going to launch this website and it's going to be selling organs, and the family were like, no, we're not fucking doing that. What are you talking about? You're going to be talking about human trafficking next. Are you insane? So that fell apart. Also, I feel like the questionnaire of like, do they have shotguns? Can they jump off a helicopter? No, then they're not setting up a server here. The year following the launch would see Haven Co.'s founding CEO return to the US, citing personal issues. In the latter part of 2002, Haven Co.'s CTO departed the company in acrimonious circumstances, and in 2003, with fast depleting resources, Haven Co. was disbanded. Server racks are still there. All of the technology from that period in time is still there. All those ancient PCs, the fucking giant towers, and those monitors that fucking pumped out heat.
28.8 modems.
Yeah. If you ever want to heat the place, just turn on a few of those computers. It'll heat the entire fucking tower. On the afternoon of 23rd of June 2006, the top platform of Ruff's Tower caught fire due to an electrical fault. A Royal Air Force rescue helicopter transferred one person to Ipswich Hospital directly from the tower. That's kind of near to where they do, but Ipswich is a specialist hospital that deals with burns.
Okay.
So I'd imagine that there was some burning involved in that. The Harwich lifeboat stood by Ruff's Tower until a local fire tug extinguished the fire. All damage was repaired by November 2006. So they actually managed to, it didn't burn to the ground, which is really good to see. In January 2007, the Pirate Bay, an online index of digital content of entertainment media and software founded by the Swedish think tank Pirate Byron, attempted to purchase Sealand after harsher copyright measures in Sweden forced them to look for a base of operations elsewhere. But it didn't come about. Between 2007 and 2010, however, Sealand was offered for sale through Spanish estate company Inmo Noranja at an asking price of 750 million euros, or 600 million pounds, 906 million US dollars, nearly $1 billion.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Go
on.
I give them the money for this.
Mm-hmm.
Do I get a fake deed, or like how? What?
Yeah.
How do I?
You don't own it. How are you going to sell it?
That's Like
I wonder if like they've been living there so long that like they've just sort of got occupation rights now. I don't know if that's how that works.
I don't know. Like, I mean, could they realistically say, "Hey, we've been here since '67," right?
Yeah, that's right.
This is ours now. Can I have a deed for this so I can sell it?
Yeah, why not?
Or I mean, I don't know how shit works there.
I don't either, and this is like unprecedented because I understand why they're asking the price that they're asking, $900 million, because this is outside of legal jurisdiction. You can kind of do whatever you want to a certain extent. I'm glad they don't. I'm glad that they actually have morals, because like if I had the space to set up a server in my house and get paid for it, I'd do that. I wouldn't mind if it was gambling or pornography. That's fine. I don't want people selling human organs, but I'd be okay with that.
I'd be totally okay with gambling and consensual pornography.
Yeah.
And piratebay.org.
Yeah, and piratebay.org. But, they've got to make money somehow. And it's not like they can have tours of this place, because the only way you can get on the fucking level onto the actual platform itself, there aren't any ladders. There's no way to get up other than the tower that has the crane arm, lowers down basically a giant swing.
Mm-hmm.
And you sit on this thing and it pulls you up the 60 feet and then puts you on the deck. And you have to do it one person at a time. And the boats have to be anchored to the ocean floor to stay where they are. There's no other way up. So you've got to make money somehow. You okay?
Yeah, my cat's trying to get in. Have they thought about trying to build some sort of way on over the last 30, 60 years?
I mean, I don't see why not, like a descending ladder or something, or like some way of getting up. I mean, they could do tours. I mean, they do tours. You go on YouTube and type in Sealand. There's like about fucking 15 different YouTubers have done this, or there's like a 60 minutes report on it and an interview with people and stuff, and you barely understand what they're saying because their accents are so thick. But yeah, I guess they could do that. But I think that the reason they're asking for all this money is it's a very expensive thing to keep going. Really,
I would imagine.
Yeah, super expensive. Anyway, Roy Bates, the original prince, died at the age of 91 on the 9th of October 2012. He'd been suffering from Alzheimer's disease for several years. His son Michael took over the operation of Sealand. Although he continued to live in Suffolk, where he and his sons were operating a family fishing business called Fruits of the Sea. So cockles and mussels and stuff like that. So yeah, that kind of business. Joan Bates, Roy's wife, died in Essex, an Essex nursing home at the age of 86 in 2016. So a few years later. Sealand, and also they have to. There is one person who lives there permanently, because if they didn't live there permanently, it could be declared vacant and it could be claimed. So there's always a permanent resident there, and he has a bunch of job titles, and one of the job titles is Minister of Defense, and he has a shotgun, and
Watch
he will
out now.
fucking shoot at you.
And a Molotov cocktail.
Yeah, got a bunch of Molotovs and just booze with a bunch of rags in there that he'll throw at you. Sealand has been involved in several commercial operations, including the issuing of coins and postage stamps and the establishment of an offshore internet hosting facility or data haven, as we talked about before. The Principality also sells noble titles on its online store, such as Lord and Baron, some notable individuals who possess titles from Sealand. Most of them have been gifted, but one of them bought it. Include legendary UK radio presenter Terry Wogan, who at his height, when he was working for BBC Radio 2, had a daily audience of 9 million people for 12 to 15 years every morning.
Good grief. That's success right there, man.
He got £7 million a year.
Wow.
At a time when the US dollar was worth like $2 was £1. So he was on $14 million a year for 15 years. And he'd been like basically in semi-retirement before then, because he hosted a TV show called Wogan, which was like, it was basically an interview segment, kind of like a late night chat show. And it was the most watched show on the BBC for like 10 years.
Oh.
So he did well, and he became a Baron of Sealand. Also, English nature broadcaster and adventurer Ben Fogle is also there, and also Ed fucking Sheeran,
of course, is
a Baron of Sealand, and he bought it. He wasn't like gifted it like the other people. He actually bought it.
What's higher than a Baron? I got to be higher than Ed Sheeran.
Could you imagine? They're like, we need to call the nobles together, and you can also buy land on Sealand. You can buy like a piece of Sealand. It's so cool. Also, a very cool cap. I looked at their cap and I was like, it's kind of cute. I like it. Yeah.
I like the hoodie. That's a cool hoodie.
I do too. Yeah, that's kind of good. They got a bunch of merch. I really recommend you go to Sealand's website. It's fucking fascinating. I'll leave the last part to Sealand's own website, an amazing propaganda machine. Today, Sealand brings together a thriving community from all over the world who unites through a shared philosophy of freedom, self-determination, and adventure. To help grow the community, we proudly offer Sealand's Noble Title Initiative. This is an open invitation to all persons of the world who share our beliefs to join our community and formally show their support in a meaningful and enjoyable way. This initiative also greatly benefits the ongoing maintenance and regeneration efforts of our fortress home, as well as helping to safeguard what is a true bastion of the freedom for future generations. For almost 60 years, the Principality of Sealand has been forging a vibrant and dynamic culture which has captured the imagination of people all over the world. Today, part of this culture can be born out of international sports. Sealand competes internationally in an ever-growing number of sports. We're proudly represented by 2 American football teams, the men's Sealand Seahawks and ladies' Sealand She-Hawks.
Okay.
Sounds like a prog rock band. In the summertime, we host a grueling open-air water charity swimming event from Sealand to the mainland of the UK, which grows in popularity by each year. In true Sealand adventuring spirit, our mountaineering team have so far taken Sealand's flag to the summit of 4 of the 7 highest peaks in the world, including Mount Everest. It's a Sealand flag, along with a bunch of corpses at the top of Everest. We also have teams competing under the Sealand flag in curling. I fucking love curling. It's an amazing, stupid sport. Ice hockey and long-distance running. In recent times, we have focused our efforts on embracing new and innovative concepts towards governance by exploring how Web3 technologies such as blockchain can create a more transparent and decentralized government. I don't know how more decentralized you can get than it's just a bunch of people on a giant walking barge in the middle of the ocean. So, yeah.
I mean, well, one person's pretty centralized.
That's pretty centralized. The rest of them are on shore and come about every now and then. Leveraging these cutting-edge tools offers Sealand an opportunity to improve our ability to represent and serve our community, empowering individuals to participate more actively in the decision-making process. This has the potential to position Sealand as a pioneer of new and fairer and more open governance, which we hope will help promote greater freedoms throughout the world. We have achieved the status of being one of the most environmentally friendly countries on Earth. 99.9% of our electricity is from renewables. I mean, it wasn't going to be from, like, you know, fucking electric pylons going out into the ocean. Yeah. Using a combination of wind turbines and solar panels, our entire freshwater supply is harvested from rainwater, which is plentiful in our country. And we shit in buckets and use it as fertilizer.
Do they have a thriving agricultural?
I think they grow their own food. So I genuinely, for people who are interested in this, because it's fucking fascinating, this story, go on YouTube and just type in Sealand. It's literally as it sounds, Sealand. And you'll find a bunch of documentaries and information on there. It's a really cool place. I've got another slide here of what Sealand looks like now. So the people who are watching this live, you should be able to see that. It is very basic looking, isn't it? So, but it's an independent nation with that you can sort of visit, and you can definitely buy. It was one of those moments where I was like, oh my God, am I going to buy a title from Sealand? I nearly did it. I was very close to buying it. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool present. If you've got someone in your life who's kind of a bit insane, like, buy them that. That's kind of a cool present, right? $20. Yeah. They could become a sir or a lord.
Yeah, I like the little ID card thing. I wish they still had the passports, man.
That would be so cool.
I want a passport and a title.
Yeah, although if you visit, they will stamp your actual passport. You can have a stamp in your passport from Sealand.
Yeah, can you do that? Are you allowed to do that, or are you get in trouble?
Yeah, you've got to organize it, and I'd imagine they'll want to have like PR involved. So if it were us, we'd have to go to Sealand to record a podcast. Like, hey, we're live in Sealand. Hey, we can do what we want. Ooh, sell human organs. Shotgun justice. But basically, yeah, you can go there with your actual passport, come on deck, and you will get stamped with the Sealand thing. You can stay overnight. They've got comfortable bedrooms with Wi-Fi and stuff. Oh my goodness, Kimberly, you've joined us right at the end there. Hello, fellas. I missed another one. My bell is on, but I'm not getting the notifications. Catch you next time. I'm sorry, Kimberly. I don't know why YouTube is that bad. Maybe it's because we do live streams. I don't know.
It's because we snuck it in a day late. That's my fault, and I apologize.
But thank you for joining us, Kimberly. You should be getting a very special present very, very soon. So look forward to that in the post. But no, so Sealand, tiny nation, kind of crazy history. What do you think?
Absolutely ridiculous.
It's crazy.
I want to go find my own little island nation now.
Man-made. So do I. I read this and I was like, this is it. This is what I want. This is what I want to do. I want my own freedom and place to live.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't even know. Like, this is the most ridiculous thing. And it's so great.
Yeah.
Like,
it really is.
The whole jumping out of a helicopter all air assault style with a shot-off shotgun to get rid of these mercenaries, and
That's
I
so
mean, the
crazy.
kidnapping thing's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's really bad.
The ransom
holding
thing, I
someone
don't
hostage.
fault him for, because I mean, you got to try.
Yeah, you
I
gotta
mean, if
get
he's
over
already
them.
kidnapped.
Yeah, why not go the whole hog? You know?
Gosh, what do you even rate this?
Yeah, because like, who's the idiot here? Really, is it the UK government for not like demolishing this thing, or like putting a permanent state there, or something, or like, is it the guy who took it over and who just kind of loves guns, or is it the people that try to invade? Like, who do you? Oh, it's so crazy.
I mean, the people that tried to invade are assholes. 'Cause,
Oh yeah,
come
big
on,
time.
man.
What are you doing? How is that going to end well for you? You just
Somebody-
cause an international incident.
Yeah, always got to try to take something that somebody else has. Somebody's always got to do it.
Yeah. You
Anyway,
know, the weird thing is that Mark Thatcher tried to do this. Mark Thatcher tried to stir up an actual revolution in Equatorial Guinea, as in Margaret Thatcher's son. He was captured by Equatorial Guinea with like about 150 mercenaries. He was trying to take over the country.
Oops.
Yeah.
Did they put him
we
in
haven't
the
heard
brig?
anything from him in a while. I wonder why.
Did they put him in the brig and ask for $70,000?
No, he some diplomats who were like friends of Thatcher managed to get him home, but there's a bunch of like people in prison in Equatorial Guinea who tried to basically take over the country, led by Mark Thatcher, who was fucking there. How stupid do you have to be on the ground when you're launching a coup d'etat? Jesus Christ. So yeah,
Ballsy. Could be
very
confident.
ballsy. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but anyway, so what? Sealand.
Sealand. On the grand scale and scoring of history's greatest idiots, I think it is the greatest of all places on the planet.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I give it a 50.
I love it. I love it. Right down the middle with this one. How do you score this? It's kind of crazy. It's definitely strange and weird and beautifully stupid in its own way. And I definitely want to buy a title from Sealand. I want to be a Sir, and I will put that on my LinkedIn profile. I don't care how unofficial it is. I will put that on my LinkedIn profile. And I'll do a little tiny post and be like, hey, for those of you who are wondering, this is where I got my official thing from. And then just never mention it again. Just leave it there.
Yeah,
Nice.
God, that was an interesting story.
Yeah, I have known about it for a while. I didn't know the full story. It's just a fucking wild ride. Yeah, that's what Hitchcock
find an abandoned thing and take my family.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that guy in America who just like moved into a vacant space in the mall and just lived there for like 5 years. That guy knew what he was doing. That was smart.
That
Saved
was
himself a bunch of money.
Gosh, what season was that? 2?
I think so. Season 2, yeah, 2 or 3. That was a really interesting idea, and he got away with it for a very long time. Saved himself thousands upon thousands of dollars by being a squatter and a vagrant and living in a mall that, you know, nobody in the mall was really paying any attention to. So there's the secret to life, folks. No, don't do that. I'm not encouraging you to do that. Find your own piece of happiness, and if that piece of happiness happens to be on a giant sea platform with a bunch of rooms below deck, surrounded by guns, then have at it. Who's to stop you if you're not hurting anyone? You know?
Yeah.
God damn, that's the essence of freedom right there. You know, that and a delivering takeaway place nearby, like something like that.
Yeah, that would be. Oh man, they don't have DoorDash. I'm screwed. I can't live there. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sealand.
Until drones arrive for DoorDash and places like that, then, you know, because you're only 8 miles. I'm sure the drone can make it there and back with a couple of pizzas. You know, maybe
battery technology's getting there.
Yeah, we're not far away. Just attach a bunch of drones together and send it over to the Pizza Hut nearby, and yeah,
those new jets and flying car things. I might be able to get me a Sealand place.
That would be cool. Oh my god, everyone's going to be building these now. Everyone's going to be an independent country.
Wow, we solved the problem.
We've solved global warming.
I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Me neither. That's Sealand and Alfred Hitchcock. Really completely different things there. I had a lot of fun talking about Hitchcock. I fucking love film history.
Oh,
But yeah, I just love it so much.
I was glad to research him and bring him out. I knew that you had the extra history and the impression and stuff, and I mean, I could have left him for you to do, which probably would have given everybody a lot more information, but
No,
I wanted to do it.
you did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
I really, yeah, I like this episode. I wanted to tell you about Sealand because, like, there's elements of it that are kind of libertarian, I think, in the way it approaches, like the kind of the freedom and self-determination and things like that. And I kind of knew, because we're both at certain stages in our life where we're looking for different elements of freedom, I think, in our lives. And I knew this would kind of speak to you, and you'd be like, that is such a cool idea, you know? And I was right.
Yes.
Now Derek wants his own Sealand. Just
I'm
don't
a
try and invade, because they will shoot
weirdo.
you. Yeah. we're just men of a certain age. We want a bit more freedom, self-determination, and kind of want to get away from it a little bit. That's just normal, I think, at this age. So, but it's cool. It's a cool story. I would definitely tell you to go and check out sealandgov.org. There's stories on there. The store is there. It's a really well-run thing by the two youngest members of Sealand now. You can get a Sealand identity card, like Derek was saying. You can get territory, a register of a piece of the territory, stamps, hoodies, the story, a bunch of packages and stuff. So go ahead, sealandgov.org, and you can find out all of that information. Fascinating story. That's our show for this week. Again, I want to thank our amazing patrons. Kimberly just dropped by super quickly there at the end. Thank you all to Kimberly, Andrew Zavara, Jesse Christ, and Dilly Bulb. And if you want to join them in slinging us some money and getting yourself a bunch of free gifts and behind-the-scenes stuff from our lives and free exclusive Patreon podcast recordings, go to patreon.com/History's Greatest Idiots. And you can also find us at History's Greatest Idiots on Instagram and on YouTube, where you can find all of our videos and a bunch of shorts and reels that occasionally do well and sometimes get people angry. Thank you all so much. It's been a really cool episode. We're a little sorry it's late, but I've had so much fun. And we'll be back soon with some really interesting stuff. I got some stuff in the works.
Oh,
I got a prankster that will blow your fucking mind.
I love pranks.
Oh, this guy took pranking to... It basically impeded his profession.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he pranked so much that people were like, I don't know if we can trust this guy with responsibility. It's a bit like Jim in The Office, but like next level stuff.
Ooh.
Not harmful, but like kind of insane.
Oh,
and
this is going to be a good one.
Yeah, he was a big star too. And the shit he pulled was crazy. So, yeah. So that's going to be coming up soon. Until then, Derek, would you like to say goodbye?
Goodbye, everybody.
And we will see you all again in a couple of weeks. Take care now. Bye.